Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that warm welcome. And I know that the mayor of New Rochelle, who I used to work with on Capitol Hill, offered you, I think he said he was going to get you 10 signs. New York City, we're going to get you 10 million, because I believe your price tag was $1 million a sign. So those will be heading your way. But seriously, thank you for inviting us to testify this morning. I'm Polly Trottenberg, New York City DOT Commissioner. I'm also one of the city's representatives on the MTA board, and I'm testifying here on behalf of the de Blasio administration. And joining me, my colleague David Veroli, General Counsel for the Department of Design and Construction, and Vincent Sapienda, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Environmental Protection. And I'm going to do some remarks on behalf of all three of us, but obviously I'm going to particularly focus on transportation. As a former federal transportation official who now has the privilege of running one of the nation's largest municipal transportation agencies, I have to say firsthand, I really know how much investing in infrastructure is essential to economic growth, and I know the mayors today talked about that, and creating opportunity and shared prosperity for all New Yorkers. And this is really the perfect time to have the conversation about infrastructure in our state. The state budget, you all are negotiating it in Albany. You're considering a $26.1 billion MTA 5-year capital plan and the $22 billion state DOT 5-year roads and bridges capital plan. Both of those are crucial for New York City and obviously for other cities throughout the state. I'm going to just take a minute to talk about what we've been doing here in New York City, because we've been doing our part. The de Blasio administration has really made an unprecedented commitment to infrastructure. We have an $84 billion 10-year capital plan, of which $75 billion comes from city funds. It's going to include $12.6 billion for the city's roads, bridges, ferries, and other transportation systems. It also includes $23 billion for schools, $15 billion for environmental protection, $8 billion for housing, and another $25 billion for a whole variety of capital construction, including sanitation, parks, police, and corrections projects. In addition to that, Mayor de Blasio has committed for the city a historic $2.5 billion in funding for the MTA capital plan. And the mayor is now working closely with the city council to finalize our city's capital plan and the budget by the end of June. But for us in New York City, we now have the highest population ever, nearly 8.5 million people. I know the colleagues on this panel know that. And we anticipate over 500,000 new residents in the next 25 years. The entire metropolitan region is slated to grow by 1.7 million by 2040. And our transportation infrastructure is going to be strained, our housing, schools, and water infrastructure as well. It was interesting to hear the mayor of New Rochelle say he has 154 miles of road. New York City DOT, we have 6,000 roadway miles, 789 bridges, and we have a ferry system that carries 67,000 passengers per day. And the MTA on the transit side of the house, 468 subway stations with 659 miles of subway track that are currently accommodating over 1.7 billion trips a year. On the bus side, nearly 6,000 buses that carry over 785 million trips a year. And our transportation system is bursting at the seams. Our subways, roads, bridges, ferries, assets, which we believe have a value of over $1 trillion, need ongoing investment and expansion to meet the historic growth that we're going to be having here in New York. We also face the challenge of global climate change, which we really experience firsthand in this city. The effects of a storm like Sandy had tremendous effects on our infrastructure, damaging subways, roadways, housing, hospital, and water systems. And more than 3 years after the storm, we're still recovering. You know, one example, the MTA recently announced Sandy-related repairs are going to have to close the Canarsie Tunnel that the L train rides through. That subway line is one that has seen explosive growth. And I know on the DEP side, DEP is now prioritizing hardening its wastewater infrastructure to increase resiliency against flood damage. Many of the city's pumping stations are in close proximity to the waterfront and are at risk from flooding and power outages that can lead to sewer overflows and backups. DOT and DDC are also proceeding together with $150 million worth of work on street resurfacing and reconstruction in areas that were flooded and damaged by Sandy. But all of these projects highlight the need to continue to protect our most important infrastructure assets before the next big storm. I'm going to now turn to the 2016-2017 Executive State Budget. And look, I want to thank all the elected officials who are listening to us today for all the work you do on our behalf. I know together we've already accomplished a lot for this city and this region, and we really treasure the partnership. We also know that as you as legislators, you have to look at all the needs of the state and balance all the competing needs. But I think I have to make the case that New York City is really the economic engine of this region and of the state. Residents in this city were 43% of the state's population, but we're 57% of the state's revenues. Our roads, bridges, subways, and ferries move nearly 4 million people a day to their jobs. The city last year saw over 58 million tourists, and obviously we're responsible for hundreds of billions of dollars in commerce and economic activity. To keep our city's economy striving, we respectfully ask for help from the state in 4 key areas: the MTA capital plan, major road and bridge reconstruction projects, CHIPS, and arterial maintenance. First of all, we ask for approval of a fully funded MTA capital plan by the Capital Program Review Board, and then that the state adopt a budget that solidifies its financial support for needed MTA capital investments. We have so many important projects pending, including Metro North to Penn Station, 20 station renewal projects in growing neighborhoods throughout the city, the next phase of 2nd Avenue subways, study for a possible Utica Avenue subway and the Staten Island North Shore BRT, system improvements such as communications-based train control, and the much-needed replacement of tracks and signals. Second, we were pleased to see the $22 billion commitment to the State Roads and Bridges Plan in the proposed executive budget, including $700 million in new federal funding, as well as the Bridge New York, Pave New York, and extreme weather infrastructure hardening programs. However, I do think from the city's point of view, we would like a better understanding of how these funds are going to be distributed throughout the state. The city has historically contributed the majority of the funding that's required to meet our infrastructure needs within the 5 boroughs. Over the last 10 years, the city has funded about 67% of DOT's capital projects. The federal government has funded 24%, and most of those funds actually flow through the state, while the state itself has contributed another 7%. We really need deeper investment from the state for major capital projects like the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway triple cantilever, with an estimated cost of nearly $1.7 billion. With over 190,000 vehicle trips per day, the BQE is one of the most heavily traveled roads in New York City and is essential for the city's mobility and commerce. It was built in the 40s and 50s. It's got, I'm sure you're all familiar with the 2 levels of traffic, 21 bridge structures, and clearly it's a major project we have ahead of us. And we'd like to respectfully ask that the state provide its fair share of the cost, which has historically been for the city's highways 38%. We also seek the state's partnership on other major projects like the Brooklyn Bridge and the Queensboro Bridge, which together accommodate 280,000 vehicles a day, and projects like the reconstructing of the Pelham Parkway Bridge over the Long Island Railroad, and major street projects like Queens Boulevard, the Grand Concourse, and Arthur Kill Road. Third, the proposed state budget maintained the CHIPS, the Consolidated Local Street and Highway Improvement Program, at the same funding level as last year, $477 million. CHIPS funds a lot of important traffic work in New York City and work like our Vision Zero program. Expanding the program would greatly benefit New York City, but also so many of the other cities in your jurisdiction: Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, all of which, of course, we understand have great transportation infrastructure needs too. And even though, as I said, New York City makes up 43% of the population of the state, we get less than 20% of the CHIPS funding. This funding is vital, and certainly we would love to make sure that New York City could get a more equitable share. Fourth, the state budget does continue to underfund municipalities throughout the state for the cost of maintenance on the state-owned arterial highway system. This underpaying for us amounts to a shortfall of over $10 million per year. The current reimbursement rate of 85 cents per square yard of pavement has not been raised since 1987, and we respectfully request to be updated to reflect current costs. Let me now turn for a moment to the infrastructure beneath the streets. DEP has infrastructure consisting of watersheds, water mains, tunnels, and aqueducts to bring water to homes and businesses throughout the 5 boroughs. DEP maintains 7,500 miles of sewer lines and 96 pump stations, taking wastewater to 14 in-city treatment plants where approximately 1.2 billion gallons of water are treated daily. DEP also has a robust capital program with a planned $14.7 billion in investments in water and sewer infrastructure over the next 10 years. This plan includes $5.6 billion that will fund wastewater treatment projects, new measures to mitigate combined sewer overflows, and construction of green infrastructure such as green roofs and bioswales. Our other sister agency here today, the Department of Design and Construction, the city's primary capital construction project manager, provides communities with new and renovated structures such as police precincts, firehouses, libraries, courthouses, and cultural facilities. As of January of this year, DDC has completed over 4,000 capital improvement projects. Moreover, they finished over 300 projects for the city's fire department, completed more than $2 billion in work for the city's cultural organizations, and invested nearly $680 million in design and construction costs for the city's 3 library systems. In addition, DDC also works beneath the ground, installing sewer and drainage systems, water pipes, and other related infrastructure projects for both DOT and DEP. So let me close by saying, while we hope to partner with the state on our infrastructure needs, all of the agencies here today recognize that we also need to deliver our projects on time and on budget. We want to be careful steward of taxpayer dollars, and we're working hard at the city level to improve project delivery. A key piece of what all our agencies need, and you've been a great champion for us, Mr. Chairman, is design build, a procurement system in which the design and construction services are contracted by a single entity. Design build will allow us to build more innovative and cost-effective infrastructure in less time. I want to thank you and Senator Lanza for sponsoring legislation that would allow 7 agencies in New York City, including the 3 before you today, to use this method of project delivery. We've seen the benefits of design build in the state. The ongoing construction of the new Tappan Zee Bridge, led by the Cuomo administration, has been the most successful example to date. It will take fewer than 4 years from the first project dredging to cars traveling over the new bridge, which is a remarkable time savings, and will save the state over $1 billion. Another example is that New York State DOT is using design build on the Kosciuszko Bridge right here in the city. Wouldn't it make sense that the city is able to use this tool that we're seeing on the Kosciuszko Bridge a few miles south on our BQE triple cantilever right along the same stretch of highway? If New York City DOT could use the same procurement method for just 9 transportation infrastructure projects, including the cantilever, we could conservatively save between $86 and $249 million, while speeding up those projects by at least 18 months. For smaller scale construction, DDC could use design build for just 10 projects, ranging from libraries to police precinct buildings, while saving over $22 million in construction costs. DEP would be able also to save significant time and money if they could use design build for wastewater treatment and sewer pumping projects. If DEP were to execute $200 million a year in construction projects with design build, the projected savings could be nearly $80 million over 10 years. The state's already proven how successful design build can be on infrastructure projects, and it is the standard practice in many jurisdictions throughout the U.S. and the world, including over 40 states. We believe the city should also take advantage of this valuable tool. In conclusion, I want to stress that investing in New York City's infrastructure not only benefits city residents and your constituents, but we believe the entire metropolitan region and the state. We want to thank you for your leadership, and we're now happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate that. Before we get to our questions, I understand, though, there are some testimony by Deputy Commissioner Sapienza. So, Mr. Sapienza, do you want to make your statement now? We'll ask all the questions later on.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, DEP submitted comments in writing.
Okay.
And we have no statement.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Each agency also, I should have said that, each agency we also submitted more detailed written testimony.
Good, then we'll go right to the questions. And thank you for your testimony. The enormity of it all is really mind-boggling. I mean, to be truthful, we're elected officials, and we go out there campaigning, and we just say whatever we want out there, what should be done and so on. But we don't really know the complexity of the city and how much is really there, and it's absolutely incredible, and I have nothing but praise for you all in trying to deal with this. Especially, we understand the problems we have, and we understand also that New York City has not, over the last 5 years, received any AIM funding. That is correct.
That's my understanding, although I think with one small caveat, as some of you are aware, a project where we were very proud to do, we got to resurface big portions of the FDR Drive this year. It's been one of the most popular projects I think I've gotten to take part in. And the state did contribute, some of the portions of that road are state-owned, and I think the state, that's where they put in their contribution, which I think was
a fine project, of which I often think about when I'm stuck in traffic.
Yes.
While it's being done. Indeed. And
but beyond that, I think you're correct. It's not, the city doesn't really get AIM funds.
yes, and we used to get quite a bit, $500 million going back into the 90s, which was cut back. And one of these days, hopefully, we'll get that restored. One of the good things that these hearings, at least to my mind, has brought to our attention was something that you mentioned, the arterial highway system and the reimbursement of 85 cents per square yard on that. Something which we didn't know about, which I certainly didn't, and even some of my colleagues in upstate New York did not know about it. And it's been put on our radar, and we're looking forward to be working with State Senator O'Mara, who has put in a bill to raise the return on that money. So we're going forward.
That would be much appreciated. The New York City DOT maintains a lot of portions of state arterials. And yes, it's one where the city and upstate cities all are in the same boat, and I think would love to see that number updated to current cost.
Right. I'm not going to ask any questions in regards to design build. I'll leave that for my colleague from Manhattan who is putting together a workshop in Albany to kind of educate us all on it. Assemblyman Rodriguez, you have any questions for the commissioner?
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for helping to outline the necessity of the investments that we have across New York City. I think beginning with the MTA capital plan, we all recognize the importance of implementing this. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we felt, with respect to the MTA, that their investment in the Second Avenue subway was short of what they initially committed, and have certainly asked them to restore that, because it is a vital project, not just for my district, but for the East Side and really the greater Manhattan, New York City region, where we happen to suffer from the most overcrowded line in the United States. So, for the record, that's an area that we certainly would appreciate your continued attention to on your position as the representative for the city on the MTA board, and one that we will continue to push the MTA to address in the capital plan immediately before going to the capital planning review board. So if you're more than welcome to comment on that.
I would like to, because look, we certainly know when the latest look, it was a big negotiation between the city and the state, and again, I think the city, we're very proud of the additional resources we put on the table. And I think, as you've heard, Tom Prendergast, the chairman of the MTA, said, the governor, and as we put this deal together, said, I don't want you to put things in the capital plan where you think you can't spend the funds. They took a hard look at Second Avenue and trimmed that number down. But I think he said publicly that if in the planning process and as we do the environmental work, if he thinks he has a chance to accelerate that project, that he will look at ways we can arrange things in the capital plan and come up with those additional funds. I'll just share with you, I think there's a larger anxiety here. The MTA has never gone so long without a capital plan, and right now, every project is in jeopardy of being delayed. So to some degree, if we take many, many more months to resolve this, it's going to be moot about whether the MTA will be able to accelerate further investments in Second Avenue, because everything's going to fall behind. So I know you all have a weighty decision on that, but I think from the city's point of view, we're very prepared to work with the MTA and do everything we can to accelerate that project, but we have a great fear about the MTA capital plan being held up month after month. It's jeopardizing a lot of important work.
No, we certainly appreciate that, and you're right. The longer it takes, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that we can't get it done. So we'll continue to push forward on that, because it is such a vital part, not just for New York City, but for the entire region. Because there are Long Island Railroad and MTA investments that are also accompanied with the state of good repair. Beyond that, we also understand that there's a significant need to be able to do things more efficiently, and you raise a very important issue in terms of how we spend our dollars and how we do so more effectively. And I think some of the savings that you outline, come out to be the hundreds of millions of dollars over time by utilizing different methods like design build. And we're looking forward to hosting this conversation to help educate the members on what exactly it is. But I think you've begun to touch on it, and I think maybe if your colleagues can add a little bit about how that would make a difference for their agencies. I think you did a great job of outlining how it could change DOT almost. Their ability to bring things online pretty dramatically.
Sure. Thank you very much. Design build would be a contracting tool that would allow us to take small projects, medium projects, and large projects and fast track them. And that's really the goal here. I was listening to the mayor of New Rochelle, the mayor of Newburgh, and they described their woes and how small their budgets are for their capital programs. This would be a tool that would benefit them as well. The ability to go in and to have a design done at the same time having the contracting team be part of that process, you eliminate a lot of the problems that you find in the construction once you've started, whether it's infrastructure or public buildings. So for DDC, where we build a lot of libraries, we do a lot of work on police stations, firehouses, homeless shelters, a whole variety of different public services above ground, as well as working for my two clients next to me in DEP and DOT. Having the access to another contracting tool would truly benefit us and make each dollar go a little bit farther, which I think is really the goal here. Thank you.
Just to add, as far as expediting projects, the way the city currently procures construction contracts is we first have to hire a professional services firm, a designer, and then once and only when the design is done can we then start the procurement process for a construction contractor. So that can often take as long as 15 months. And again, time is money, so that period of time can be shrunk or even eliminated with design build and other similar methods.
I just wanted to add one other thought, and we're talking about saving money and time, but part of the reason particularly I think saving time is so important, and you all are elected officials, we want the public to have confidence that when we tell them with great fanfare often, we're building this project, we're breaking this ground, that they're going to see it in a reasonable amount of time. And I think one of the things we all struggle with, the city's capital construction process takes so long now. We have a great groundbreaking and we tell people, you can hardly wait till this new facility or roadway or plaza, and then many years go by and the public does not feel confident in what we're doing. And we feel the weight of that. We want the public to feel confident that we can deliver on our promises.
Commissioner, let me just, insert here. We understand the frustration of that. We have the same problem up here whenever we give out capital grants to some of the agencies, and it seems to get lost in the governor's pockets. And years later, it finally comes when everybody is yelling and mad at us. So we understand what you're going through. Robert,
Sure.
anything else?
Yeah, just to follow that up, I mean, I think there's some real life examples that we sometimes overlook, and we've heard about the cantilever, but just to share one and why I care about design build a little bit. We have a project on the border of my district, the Marine Transfer Station, which certainly one that came with a lot of controversy, but is still moving forward. And one of the agreements that we've come to is that in order to facilitate its utilization, that a ramp needs to be built in a different location. Now, in order for that ramp to come online, right now we have to put it out for design, then put it out for construction, separate from the construction work that's already happening at the Marine Transfer Station, which means that ramp's going to come on 2 years later after everything is all built and said and done. And the reason why we're doing this is because the current location of the ramp is right in the middle of probably the biggest after-school and summer program, in the East Side. So this is potentially one of those areas where design, build, and contracting measures could really cut down time and make sense to create a safer environment, for the residents of this of our community, while taking advantage of the construction time that's already being done. So that's just one of the ways that I think this can be effectively utilized to make projects smarter and more efficient and less disruptive to communities. So I just wanted to share that with my colleagues. And of course, if any comment from the Deputy Commissioner are welcome. But
I would just make the comment, since I'm the agency that's actually building the Marine Transfer Station.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. I would say that the entire project could have been done faster with a tool like design build. Because in this instance, our client, Department of Sanitation, did the procurement of the design. And then we stepped in to assist and to take over and run the construction. But this is a very linear process, and it's been taking years and years and years. And we could have been done with this. We could have already been working on the new ramp, and we could have been out of that situation at least 1 to 2 years ago.
Thank you.
Assemblyman Linares.
Good morning, still morning. Commissioner, Deputy Commissioners, thank you for your testimony. I have been being around the block, in a previous life as a council member in the 90s, and also being aware of the challenges that our deteriorating and old infrastructure presents as we see the population growth and the greater demands on that infrastructure. It's inescapable that unless we have a plan that is not just immediate to address the challenges and crises that come either by our overuse or by nature, we know what that means. It's critical for us to look middle term and long term, and I know that drives, our planning process, and so let me begin by first thanking you for being so responsive within the area that I represent in Northern Manhattan, which has its share of challenges. When we think of the waterfront, and we see what is happening with the borough of Manhattan, and the challenge that we still have connecting the east side and the west side and the northern tip of Manhattan, which is my district. And I want to raise that because I know that there have been many challenges that we face as we look to use the waterfront and also to facilitate access to the waterfront for growing communities, and mine is no exception. But also, I want to highlight that New York City connects in so many ways with the region, and through my district, we connect with South or with the George Washington Bridge to New Jersey and the other southern states to us, but it also represents challenges because we are one of the most overcrowded neighborhoods that you find. You have I-95 going by, and so that represents a tremendous challenge that need not just immediate but more long-term planning in terms of facilitating the flow of huge number of people who either come to work or come to visit or are simply coming through. That has tremendous impact. So I know that you in so many ways touch every part of the city with the challenges that it presents, but I just want to highlight that because I think that those are two examples that we need to have planned, not just in the immediate and midterm, but long term, to address the growing pains that we have as we anticipate increase in population and increase on demands on the infrastructure.
It's a very good point. I mean, we actually have dual challenges, which is if the city's population didn't grow at all, we would still have an enormous challenge keeping up the infrastructure that we have. I mean, you mentioned the age of it. As I mentioned, we have 789 bridges in my inventory, and some of them are quite old. I talk about often our big East River bridges as our beautiful centennials. The Brooklyn Bridge is now 132 years old. So just if the city weren't even growing, just maintaining the infrastructure we have is tremendously challenging. And look, I know it's also true for our water infrastructure and so much of our infrastructure. But yes, the city is growing. And look, that's a wonderful thing and an exciting opportunity, but certainly how are we making better use of the waterfront? How are we, I mean, certainly up in your district, dealing with Port Authority issues, bus terminal, the growth you're seeing up there. I mean, certainly we are trying to look ahead to what is the city's needs going to be in 10 and 20 years? How do we partner better with the Port Authority, the MTA? So we're trying to do both, and certainly resources are one of the big challenges there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Assemblyman Delan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for my tardiness. I was getting my visa checked out as I entered the Whitestone Bridge. They don't let the Brooklyn guys in the Bronx.
We check very carefully who we allow in this borough.
Thank you. I was ultimately cleared, I like to say. Commissioner, first I want to welcome you and thank you for your testimony. I also spent some time in the City Council and loved funding infrastructure. In fact, I don't think there was an infrastructure project that I didn't support during my time in the city. Infrastructure is a major interest of mine. But you spoke briefly in your testimony specifically about the L train and the Sandy-related repairs. What are the issues, and if you could give us the time frame for construction to begin and the expected costs of the renovations there?
Yeah, and obviously that is certainly, I think that was kind of an announcement that popped out a little unintended on the part of the MTA, I guess now about 3 weeks ago. It's very preliminary, and look, it's going to present a big challenge, and one that I can pledge certainly from the New York City point of view. We're going to work very, very closely with them, I think, to come up with, first of all, to see what their plans are going to be, but also to be as creative as we can about how we're going to help people in the neighborhoods that are going to be affected with their commutes, help the merchants. It's a huge challenge. As you may know, obviously, a lot of our tunnels were damaged after Sandy. The MTA got a good amount of federal money to repair the tunnels. They started with one that was the easiest to do, which was the Montague Tunnel, which, because it's in a part of Brooklyn that had a lot of redundancy, they were able to repair it, and it had a pretty minimal effect. But now, unfortunately, they've come to the Canarsie Tunnel, which is clearly going to have a much bigger impact, the L train being the only train that, as you know, runs through your district and a big part of Brooklyn. It's going to be a huge challenge, and we're still in the very early stages, so I think there's no timetable, there's no price tag, there's not even a decision about exactly the different ways you could do it. Is it better to close the entire tunnel off and do it quickly, or try and run one track and have it take many, many years? Try and do it only on weekends and have it take many, many, many years? I think that's going to be, a discussion that obviously will involve elected officials in the local community. And ultimately, will be driven by the MTA. But on the city's part, we certainly pledge to work closely with them to see what are the creative things we can do in terms of bus service and other things to try and help the commuters who are obviously going to be, there's going to be a lot of challenges when the tunnel work gets underway.
Unfortunately, my constituents are too used to the shuttle bus and all the work that the MTA has done over the years. It ended up being a line that's great to ride. It's always been great to ride, but now with the damages. I'm glad that you said during your response to the question, and I'll take it to assume that it's too early for you to tell the expected course of the time frame. You might have said that. But the communication regarding this project definitely needs to be improved, and I'm glad you said that maybe it was a staff leak. You don't have to respond to that part of it.
It appears that it leaked out, I think, a little prematurely, and I can't tell you how. Again, it was MTA information, but that appears to be what happened.
Well, I think that explains the way we found out, because I found out via press, and the electors in the area, the constituents jumped on us, and we were unable to respond with firsthand factual information. So it didn't make us look too good either. But now that that's on the record, it can be explained, and hopefully going forward we can handle that a little bit better. And I look forward to working with the agency as it develops. I also want to just express my support for my colleague Robert Rodriguez on the 2nd Avenue subway. I'm a little bit concerned that as this project goes on, if it's not fully funded, it will never make it to East Harlem. And I believe that will be unfortunate. I stand with him and his constituents 1,000%. I believe if we're going to invest, it's cheaper to do everything at once as opposed to different phases. And I hope that you, in your role as the city's representative on the MTA board, can be helpful. How can we help in the state?
Well, I think, again, I know there have been discussions going on, I think with some of the affected members, both at the state level, the council level, and I think also some of our congressional delegation. And again, I think those have been MTA discussions. The city has not been that much a part of them. We're happy to participate. I really, again, I do feel a sense of urgency, which is, the 2nd Avenue subway is a high priority, but the city has many, many priorities in the MTA capital plan all over the city. We have many, many projects, and a lot of the basic things that are needed to upgrade the signal systems, to repair stations, to make them ADA accessible. So again, I think we could pledge here to get together in any forum you all would like and see if we can broker a solution, because I do think from the city's point of view, we feel great urgency to reach an agreement one way or another and move ahead with the MTA's capital plan. The city, the region, the state really needs it.
Oh, so no specific ideas on how legislators can be helpful?
Well, again, I think it's a discussion I'd love to have. I think I'd want the MTA also to be a part of that.
Okay, no problem.
They have some ability to say what they can do and can't do.
And there were some good things in that plan locally, specifically the connection between the L line and the 3 line will be great for my constituents. It'll allow them to access all the culturals in Brooklyn, as well as students traveling from my area to Brooklyn College. It'd make their commute a lot easier. So I want to thank you for that. The chairman touched on the shortfall for municipalities in their highway maintenance cost, and you said it's 85 cents per square yard
Pavement.
of pavement. $10 million shortfall. Could you just explain? This is new to me. I've never heard it. What should it be? Could you just go into a little
Yeah,
more detail?
well, many of the big municipalities around the state, New York City and a lot of your big upstate cities, we do some of the arterial maintenance on state arterials, and the state reimburses us at a formula that was set by the state legislature at 85 cents per square yard of pavement. That number has not been increased, I think, since I said it in my testimony, in 1987. Costs have gone up a lot since 1987. I think, we can work together with you on what an appropriate inflator would be, but certainly again, as I say in my testimony, for the city, we're putting in basically $10 million of city funds every year to maintain these state arterials, and we're strained maintaining our own roadway, as I said, of 6,000 miles of roadway. So, and again, we're not the only city. I think all the upstate cities share this concern. So,
And I guess that's what I was getting at, is what would the appropriate inflator, what would that be when I guess if you could share it with the chairman.
and right, I mean, I think for the city, it's, it's probably about double what, I think it would be easy to say that maintenance costs for us are probably double about what they were in 1987, so more like $1.75 instead of 85 cents. But again, I think that's probably a number we would want to negotiate. It may even be different in different parts of the state, so I won't presume to tell you what the perfect number is, but happy to, share with you our cost structure and what we think it's costing the city and help be part of a solution there.
Okay, and finally for you, I do have one question, Mr. Chair, for DP.